Another eerie story, and don't forget to follow so I can get you history, mystery, conspiracy, and everything in between. This story tonight is a little crazy because it's in my home state. So I remember being in high school when this case broke open, and it was a huge deal. I remember my mom being scared when she was younger because she lived in Kansas when all of it was going on. So Dennis Rader, aka BTK. He was the BTK murderer, BTK standing for bind, torture, and kill. He would only target women, and he would play out these weird fantasies. This was a family man. He was married. He had 2 children. He was big in his church. He was just your normal average great American dad, as they all thought. So what he was known for was playing the cat and mouse game with the police. This started in like 1974 was when he first started his killings. And what he would do is he would sneak into women's houses, bind, torture, and kill them. It was awful. And then he would take little souvenirs like their underwear, little trinkets, stuff like that. Then he would take pictures of himself wearing those articles of clothing and whatnot, and like tying himself up and torturing himself in these photos, and that's what they would get sent to the police officers. So there's this big cat and mouse game trying to figure out who this killer was, and whenever things would die down, they would get more evidence. So it was just like they were being taunted the whole time. And sadly, there were several women that endured this and are no longer here. Another big tip on what he did back in the time of all these murders, he worked for ADT. People would call the company because they were scared of these BTK murders, and he was the one going in their houses, setting up these camera systems. Absolutely eerie, because I'm sure people were home talking to him about these awful occurrences as he's like knowing exactly what was going on as it was him himself doing it. So fast forward to 2000-ish, somebody started writing a book, and he hadn't got a lot of attention lately because the BTK murders had kind of died down because there hadn't been a lot of action for a few years. He goes and writes a letter and puts it on a floppy disk and sends that floppy disk to the cops, because he used to do letters. Fast forward now to 2000s, they're floppy disk, okay? That is how they were able to break the case wide open. Apparently, he went to a local library, put in the floppy disk, used the floppy disk, sent it to the cops. The cops were able to trace back where that floppy disk was, who was there at that time, who logged into the computer, and then that's how they were able to find him. But this was such a huge case here in Kansas because they've been looking for this guy for almost 30 years. 1974 to 2005 is when he was actually convicted, so right around there. But this was a horrifying story. And I remember there was one case where the mother was bind, tortured, and killed, and her child was sitting in the closet and witnessed the whole thing. It's absolutely awful. Do you guys remember this case? Do you remember it was all over the internet, the newspapers, everything? It was around 2005. He has been incarcerated. He's been in prison I believe he's in Parsons in Kansas, but I had heard too they were moving him around, so people weren't sure where he was because it was such a high profile. If you have any eerie, weary, creepy stories you want me to put out here, drop a comment, drop me a message. I'd love to get together and discuss it with you, and then I can tell the story on here. There are so many I have coming for you guys. I really like doing the paranormal, the crime, all the conspiracy, all the hocus pocus, as you might call it.